Hey, folks, welcome back for episode 6 of Barton Means Business, where we recap the events of what we're doing with the Barton School of Business and Innovation, both last week and moving ahead, looking forward for the next week. So, welcome back. Welcome back, Becky.
Thanks. Good to be back. So let's see. Where have we been and where are we going?
Well, you know what? I've got several words of the week that'll probably pop out this time, but it's going to start out with the word rigor. What I really have enjoyed this past week or so has been the rigor that we have in all the programs at Barton, throughout Barton College, but also the School of Business and Innovation as well. Evaluating, reviewing, looking forward, but ensuring our students have a meaningful academic experience while they're at Barton College. And that really is the word of the week for me is meaningful. We've just completed our advising, and now we're moving ahead with helping our students register for next semester. And in that process, we're learning much more about them. A student grows so much over the course of a semester. So it's the kind of thing where you really want to stick close with a student to make sure that they are ready and excited about their learning journey.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that the students have gotten through their advising and are moving on to next semester. It's hard to believe that they're already registering for the next semester.
Truly is. It moves so quickly. And if you kind of look at it from a semester by semester perspective, you miss a lot. It's when you start looking from the perspective of kind of being over and above the fray that you start to see places where you can make a difference, where you can involve partners and innovators and residents and things like that. We're going to talk a little bit about those two particular areas in a moment, but what I love about being able to look at it from afar is that we get a chance to bring in additional valued voices, bring in additional partners, bring in additional perspectives.
That's wonderful. What else has been going on and what updates do you have?
Yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes I feel that I'm careening in from one week to the next, but it really is all for the purpose of making progress and doing some amazing things here at the School of Business and Innovation. I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about what it means to be an innovator in residence at Barton College. If you look at it as a kind of a pyramid or a triangle, a hierarchy or a taxonomy, at that base level, you've got folks that work with us in the traditional ways, advisors, counselors, that sort of stuff. And we certainly love it when we have our advisory councils and committees and they help us with a particular curriculum or a particular issue that we're dealing with the school. But we also have that next layer up where we have mentors and coaches. And honestly, I'd love to hear from more folks who'd like to be a mentor or a coach, not just to a student or to a certain program or curricula, but also to faculty, that sort of thing as well. I'd love to have those conversations with you. But at the next level, at the tip of the pyramid, we have what I'm calling the innovators in residence. And these are folks that are volunteering as well, but they're volunteering at a different level. They're actually helping us kind of create new programs, new curricula, new ideas, and kind of focusing some time and talent to these processes. For example, you may have heard from Igor Gorlatov, who is one of our innovators in residence.
Yes, and last week, Igor and I visited the campus and had a great time meeting with a lot of the faculty and staff at the School of Business and Innovation. Got to meet some students, and it was a lot of fun. And I'll throw up some pictures of that visit while we're talking about this.
Sure they're probably showing right now, which is great. What I loved about you guys coming and visiting is that you got a chance to see firsthand what we were doing on campus. You got a chance to meet our students. You got a chance to meet our faculty. You got a chance to just experience what Barton College is and the overall feeling of the place. And you got a chance to work with me, which was great because I got a chance to have really deep and meaningful conferences with you guys and just talk about some of the possibilities up ahead for us.
Yeah, and one of the fun things that Igor has been doing is reaching out to people about some of the programs that we're planning. There's a thing that we're planning around an AI certificate, and he's been reaching out to people to see if they want to be a mentor in planning this program. So it's been really great to see that starting to gel where people are saying, yes, I want to help with this. It was fun to get to see people in person and put names to faces and things like that. And I think that really is going to help going forward as we work on some of these projects together.
I just love these photos that you've been showing. We had a really great day. It's a beautiful day for you to visit. I sometimes think you must have called the Chamber of Commerce because some of those photos you just showed were just tremendous, and I really appreciate you guys coming and working with us. And it also reflects on the partnerships that we're developing, both locally in Wilson, but also regionally, super regionally, that sort of thing. Even the associations we work with and the national affiliations that we have. We talked before about FBLA, and I'm really excited about doing more and reporting more on that as we go through the semester. But we also have Skills USA. We've been talking to Spark NC and the VR AR Association. So a lot of these national organizations are working with, we're going to be talking about in the coming episodes, but really excited about the kind of colleagues, both internal and external, we're working with to help accelerate all that we do at the SBI.
Yeah, those are really great partnerships that are coming along swimmingly, and again, great to meet people. And speaking of FBLA, we got to meet a couple of the officers of FBLA, and I'm telling you, what great shining examples of students. They were just amazing. I'm really excited to see more, doing more with them, and those young students were just phenomenal.
I think what we're seeing, and I think it's really probably for us who've been in this industry or in business for, well, let's just say decades. We won't say how many decades, right? But I love how we're witnessing the emergence of these students as entrepreneurs. We're seeing their premier works, maybe not their magnum works, their great works, but their premier works, their first works. And that's really exciting to kind of be a witness to that, especially when they're, 18, 19, 20 years old. And then to see them when they're graduating, they're so much more advanced. And then to see alumni come back who've, built companies and have gone on to work with the large organizations. It really is great to have that perspective. So I'm glad you brought that up because you're right. We do have some of the best and brightest at Barton College, and I'm really excited that some of those are in the School of Business and Innovation.
Yeah, absolutely.
But speaking of meaningful, again, that's my word of the week, and I'll kind of even stretch it a bit more and say, I know that we're building a meaningful community with what we're doing here at Barton College. And an example of that is from our consortia that we have. As you may recall, we have two consortia right now that we meet every other week. One is the Data Analytics Consortium, and the other one is the Neurodata Analytics Consortium. And last time, or the time before, we had a clip from one of our colleagues from the Data Analytics Consortium. But this week, I'd love for you to have a look at this clip that we're going to show now from our Neurodata Analytics Consortium, where we heard from you, actually, and also from Rick Doughton and Dr. Meg Thompson about neurodivergent learning styles. Have a look.
Well, I mean, because like Rick, I can read something. My eyes can be going over it. I can be literally reading the words in my head and still my mind be wandering and not absorbing what I'm reading. I can go through the motions and be thinking of something else, even as I am literally reciting the words in my head as I'm reading it.
Or
So,
automatic driving. Similarly, it's like
yeah.
you're driving down the road and so it's like, oh my gosh, I was just thinking of this thing and I don't even remember what was going by.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So one thing I would say about that is, to Becky's point about, an assignment is made and you basically have responded to these three pairs and you don't even know what you're supposed to be learning. So there's a concept that I have incorporated in my courses, and a lot of folks in higher education which is transparency in teaching and learning, or learning and teaching. So we can say TILT. And with that, you establish what the objectives are. And so by the end, you should be able to answer a series of questions. Did you learn what, broad example, macroeconomics? What examples of macroeconomics did you see in the case study? What examples of, I don't even know because I don't know economics, but just thinking about business terms. So you have to have a case study is not unlike any other learning activity. What are the students supposed to learn? In larger picture, how is that tied to the course outcomes? So it's a little bit like me asking Ken about his research question, because don't be diving into an activity in education and in research when you don't know what you're looking for. You don't know what is supposed to happen.
Yeah, that was such an interesting conversation. I remember that really well. And Meg's point about the transparency in learning and teaching, tilt, was a really interesting point. And I don't think we had really discussed that before.
No, we haven't. And I think what you didn't get in the clip, and we can talk about it in future episodes, is that this all stemmed from a conversation that we had earlier in the call, where we were talking about new technologies that are emerging to help neurodivergent thinkers. And if you think about it, most of us are neurodivergent thinkers. That's not really the new part, but what the new part is that we've got some new technologies that are focusing on things like cognitive load and the ability for us to remind ourselves that we all learn in different ways.
Absolutely.
I've also had an opportunity over the past several days to have meaningful conversations with the college administration, which we can't leave that out because we are a school within the college, right? And the college, of course, has all sorts of things that they do to help us, particularly when there are areas of advancement, marketing, curriculum development, recruiting, all those things. And I really have enjoyed over the past week or so just to see how it's kind of coming together after a few months of being on the job here in Wilson and at Barton College. Just the way the administration is working with me and with the School of Business and Innovation, working together to find new ways to provide value to our students and for our students.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit more about how you were thinking about providing value?
I could, and I will. So you have to look at it from, we have different products, and I'll speak to it from a business perspective, okay? And again, I don't want to sound cold or that I'm not thinking about the students as people, but if you look at it from a product perspective, we have an undergraduate product and we have a graduate school product. And just to have the ability to talk with someone from the administration who understand that, we want to increase both the rigor and the numbers that we have for our graduate school product. And we also want to increase the rigor and the connectedness of our product.
Terrific. And speaking of product, let's talk a little bit about that because we have been considering, some continuing education things, which goes a little bit beyond the graduate and undergraduate students. So let's kind of discuss that a little bit too.
And I'll kind of blend that in with the up ahead portion of our talk here. We continue to work on our certification and outreach. And I'm going to land on that word outreach a little bit because you're right. I mean, it's not just our students. It's not merely our students. It's our place in this community that we call Wilson, Eastern North Carolina, Barton College. We have a place in this community. We've been here for over 100 years. So being able to reach out and help others, regardless if they're students or not, they're members of our community, around literacy, not just what you typically think of when you think of literacy, but things like AI literacy, esports and gaming literacy, literacy for cybersecurity. And then finally, really near and dear to us and to some of our partners is the concept of financial literacy, reaching out to underserved communities, underserved members of communities here in Eastern North Carolina to help them at least learn more about these things that are evolving and moving pretty fast, if you ask me. Some of these things are moving very, very rapidly. And just being able to provide that nomenclature, that lexicon, that's something that helps them participate in a meaningful way within the community, the larger community.
Being from a small rural area, a lot of those things around financial literacy, but also opportunities are really important to me because a lot of the times when you're not from a big populated area, it can be difficult to find opportunities. So I think presenting those opportunities for young folk who are, maybe don't have schools that have a lot of money, or even adults from areas that they just don't have the best education, and finding ways to take this to them. I'm really excited about those. I've been a single mom for a really long time, so that financial piece of it and is another piece. I want to see single moms get more educated about finances and things like that too. So I'm really excited as we find different ways to expand this continuing education and find audiences we can push this to. I'm really looking forward to doing more in those areas.
And we will. But I think I'm going to stop here and go ahead and give you a quick story from the journey because I think stories are such a good way to convey some of the things that we're talking about here. Just last year, I was giving a talk to a high school and we were just chit-chatting about, of all things, cybersecurity. But a young lady spoke up and she had a heartfelt question about, what happens when her grandmother gets ripped off at the store. She's just swiping her card and she realizes that someone has stolen her number and her grandmother was mortified. Number one, she's not really technology adept at some of these things. And she's nervous, she's embarrassed, she's confused. And it's just not right because we tend to have issues with the most vulnerable in our population. And I was really impressed by this young lady standing up and saying, I need help for my grandma and I want to help her. And I think that's where we can see a lot of the success that we're going to have here with some of these literacy programs. There's a hunger for it. There's a desire for it that goes beyond just knowledge. It goes into this idea of insight and wisdom that we talk about. So I'm excited about those particular stories and sharing more of those kind of stories in our future episodes.
Yeah, I think just making people feel more comfortable with
Yeah.
learning, but also even just asking questions and feeling okay with that, I think will go a long way. Was there anything else you wanted to share, or was that kind of the looking forward and that's what we have for now?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to all that's ahead, folks. Great seeing you this time, and thank you, and we'll see you in the next episode.
All right, we'll see you next time, everyone. Thanks for joining us.